been sold the idea that financial independence is all about some number on your account statement, or even worse, that you don't qualify because of where you started out. That's just not true. It's not about some well-kept secret of the wealthy. It's about finding the right information and knowing how to apply it. On the Get Ready for the Future show, we're answering your questions so you can start making real financial change today. The journey to true financial independence begins right here, and it starts with you.
Hey, if you're serious about discovering, protecting, and someday sharing true financial independence, this is the right stop today as we welcome you to the Get Ready for the Future show. That's what we are all about here at GenWealth Financial Advisors, is helping people reach that level of financial independence. It may be years off, it may be decades off, it may be tomorrow, but we are about planning to show you what day you have reached financial independence. That's what the show is about. That's what we exist at GenWealth Financial Advisors for our clients. That's why we exist. My name is Scott Inman. Glad to have you along. Tim Key with me today as we answer your questions on the show about annuities. We're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about retiring early. When you talk about financial independence, everybody can dream that in their mind, Tim, about doing it early. What are the challenges? What are the things that you need to be thinking about if you want to pull the trigger early? We've got a question from a firefighter about savings outside of pension, outside of a pension, and also a young daughter, or a man emailing a question for his young daughter and how to get her started off on the right foot. So I think we're covering all the bases today in the question and answer process. Glad to have you along this morning.
It's good to be here, and it's a wide range and some good questions.
Yep. So let's start. Denny from Texas is first up. I'm 52 with $100,000 in savings and about $450,000 in various retirement accounts, a mix of qualified and non-qualified. I listen to the show often and hear you talk about annuities providing lifetime income. Is that something I should consider at this age? Consider? Yes, but let's walk through what you should be considering. Denny, the first time, and let's get this out of the way right off the bat. Our disclaimer that annuities are insurance contracts and they can carry fees, charges, and restrictions. You should consider the contract carefully before purchasing. Guarantees are based on the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. So we check that box, and that's true. It's all true. But when you are considering an annuity, Denny, the first question we would ask you is, when are you planning to retire? Because of everything we just said there, Tim, annuities are useful products. Depends on what type of annuity, but for those that don't understand annuities, let's start with the basics on what an annuity is.
Yeah, an annuity is really just a product at its core is to help you save and keep taxes off of that money. Yep. So it's really good for non-qualified money, which is your bank savings account, something you might inherit, something like that. It protects you from taxes until you actually start withdrawing that. But then there's also you can use that for retirement money as well, but there are different types of annuities. Some provide annual income that can be broken down and taken monthly. Others is for investment only. There's lots of different ways that annuities are sliced and diced these days, and you do need to be careful on which ones you're getting into, because there are some that we have seen walk into this office that we would not touch with a 10-foot pole, and they're difficult to get out of sometimes because they do have surrender penalties, meaning that the insurance company is going to charge you for getting out of that, whether it's a 5-year surrender, 10-year. We've seen up to 18-year surrender penalties. And so we need to be careful on what we're doing. But at 52 and having $450,000 in various retirement accounts, and it does depend on what types of accounts and whether that money is even accessible to move into an annuity at this point, because oftentimes in your retirement plan, annuities aren't available. And so you'd actually have to get that money out of your retirement account into an IRA oftentimes to actually purchase the annuity. And often you can't get that money out unless you've retired or you're 59 and a half and your company allows it. But then the real question is, when are you going to want to start taking income? When are you going to retire? And we don't want to go too early with the purchase of the annuity, because the annuities do provide insurance for your retirement. It provides that insurance on your income. But if we go too early, some of the perks that it provides may not completely give us the best benefit. So there is a good time to get into an annuity, and there's also reasons not to get into an annuity. So we can talk through some of those, Scott.
Yeah, so that's why we ask you, Denny, when are you planning to retire? But if you have listened to the show very much at all. You've probably heard us talk about the retirement income house, and we've got a graphic for our viewers who are watching on the live stream version. There's just a house. You see the underground and you see the above ground. So when it comes to the annuities role in someone's retirement income plan, it's the below grade. It's the foundation of that house that you're seeing on the screen. What is the foundation? In retirement, it is your guaranteed income, because it's the required income that you're going to need. We believe very strongly at GenWealth that your retirement expenses should be paid with guaranteed retirement income. So what kind of source of retirement income are you going to have that's guaranteed, Denny? Well, more than likely Social Security, perhaps 2 Social Security checks if you're married. Maybe there's a pension involved, but we need to calculate on one side of the house how much you're going to need in retirement, on the other side of the house, how much you have coming in guaranteed income streams. If there is a gap between those two numbers, an annuity can be very useful, using a portion of your assets to get that gap filled with lifetime income from an annuity so that you can pay your bills in retirement. But here's the other step to that. If you go back to that house real quick, Casey, the middle of the house is your desired income, and that has to increase over time. So you think about stacking your required income in the foundation, on top of that, the desired income. That's what you want to do, your discretionary spending. It's not the have to have it, it's the want to have it. And then whatever that starts at, Tim, in day one of retirement, we've got to have investments that are going to allow us to increase that over time.
Yeah, usually annuity payments aren't going to increase. So we do have to have money outside invested in the market or real estate or some other type of investment vehicle that will grow over time so we can provide raises. I mean, that's something that we all want on an annual basis. When with our jobs, you want to get a cost of living adjustment or a raise, and you want to do the same thing in retirement. You don't want to start retirement at $5,000 and 10 years from now still be getting $5,000, because as we've seen recently over the last few years, inflation is real and it's going to continue. Hopefully it won't continue at the high pace we've had, but we want to be able to provide additional income throughout retirement so that you can have the same purchasing power and buy the same things that you're used to today.
Let's go back real quickly, Casey. I know I'm pointing you towards that house real quick to just finish up the analogy, though, because you do have that nice yellow roof area on top of the house we need to talk about. And that, we can call it the legacy bucket. We can also call it a longevity bucket. That is the leftovers, if you will, because we don't know how long you're going to live, Denny. So we definitely don't want to run out of money. So that's the extra money that is not required for the duration of the plan, and the plan might last till you're age 90. But if you live to 91 or 92, that money in the attic, to use the house analogy, is there to reset for more monthly income. So it's a great question about annuities, and we know annuities are very popular right now. In fact, in 2023, U.S. annuity sales reached a record high of $385.4 billion. That's an all-time record, and the average age of the buyer was 62 years old. So we point out that it's getting more traction. It's getting more discussion. It used to be a bad word, Tim, but you can see people are interested in guaranteed lifetime income, and that's great, but I think these are considerations that you have to walk through, and it has its place in your plan if needed. But the other thing I would say is, you mentioned the 401ks. They're not offered there, but they are about to be. That has been part of the Secure 2.0 legislation that has offered that or opened that door for 401k providers to begin offering annuities inside of those 401ks. And they may sound really good to get a lifetime income, but a 32-year-old doesn't need to be purchasing an annuity inside of their 401k.
Exactly. We really don't need to take on a lot of times the fees and things associated with that for the investment drag at an earlier age. So that's why oftentimes, like here, we've seen that the average buyer was 62. That is probably, give or take 5 or 6 years, the time frame that someone needs to be looking at an annuity. And so, yeah, throwing that in a 401k and having that option. Of course, annuities come in lots of different flavors, and if you have a 401k offering of an annuity, we haven't seen those yet. We don't know what those are going to look like, but it may be a very vanilla, one-size-fit-all, and we usually don't have a one-size-fit-all in the investment plan.
Thanks, Denny, for the question. If you've got a question for the Get Ready for the Future show, you can call or text to this number, 501-381-5228. to hear your questions answered on the air, or you can send us an email. You can just send that to show@getreadyforthefuture.com. Moving on to Marcus from Fayetteville. I'm hoping to retire by age 55, currently 47. My spouse and I have discussed different aspects of life after work and want to travel and volunteer during our free time, so we figure we'll need a bit more cash flow to be able to do that. We've been very blessed and also worked very hard, so right now we have about $890,000 saved. What more do we need to do to be financially independent throughout retirement? Marcus, thanks for the question. Great goals, great start. You've got a good nest egg there, and you have about 8 more years from 47 to 55 to grow that nest egg, and that's important. But I think we need to walk through, for you, some challenges that you may not be thinking about when you are dead set on retiring at that early of an age. And a lot of people are. A lot of people are wanting to retire earlier than that. But there are some challenges that don't exist if you wait longer. So a couple of client stories here for you. And Scott, Tim and I's client, I'm Scott, right?
That's Scott.
Tim and I's client, we want to tell you a little bit about that. We're working with a guy who is turning 55 in August, and he is planning to walk away from work in about a year. So very close, Marcus, to your age. He'll probably be about 56 years old, and he has accumulated some significant assets. By that time, he will probably be in the $3 million range. So a large sum of money, and he will be able to do it, but he's going to have to start out with a lower income than if he were to work longer. I also have a client who's 30 years old right now and is already zoned in on this. So you think about, Marcus, you're at 47, thinking about 55. Don't know how long you've been thinking about it, but this client is 30 years old and already has his eyes set on an early retirement. We showed him 3 views of retirement at age 55, at age 60, and age 65. And I can tell you, and you can chime in on this too, Tim, there's a big difference when you talk about income, monthly income available to you at 55 versus 60 and 65. And there's huge reasons for that. Obviously, you've got to make it last longer. But you also, if you're cutting off your savings at 55 versus 65, you're not going to have as many assets.
Yeah, because usually in your 50s and you're also in your 60s, you're in your highest income earning years. You've got the kids out of the house more often than not, so you're able to actually save more. So those years of savings that you would normally have if you worked till 62 or 65 or whatever that age might be, you lose that opportunity if you quit working at 55. And we see more and more people coming in that want to retire early, and I think there's a lot of hope there that can happen. But again, we really need to have that plan built around you specifically to show you what your income could be, how long your money is going to last. One of the things we see oftentimes, it's very difficult to retire real early when you don't have some type of guaranteed income source. I know we talked about annuities, and annuities really aren't the plan for someone at age 55, but we have a lot of folks that might work in schools, in public government and things like that have pensions that can be turned on at an earlier age. And when you have that guaranteed income source coming in, that can really help your assets continue to stay invested and continue to grow and give you a much better opportunity at retiring at an earlier age.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing. You talked about the guaranteed income sources and the assets needed to replace those guaranteed income sources for several years. And I don't want to suggest that our client who's going to wind up with $3 million, that's the target. It could be a little less. It might need to be more depending on your income, what your income desires are, because you talked about traveling, you talked about volunteering. You need to sit down and make a retirement income plan so that you can see on a monthly basis what your assets could provide and for the rest of your life and see if that's doable. Now, it can be done. We don't want to discourage you. It can be done at 55. That $890,000 is a great start, but you would probably need to really ramp up contributions and get some catch-up going for the next 8 years. And I think building up the non-retirement money, you said he has some significant money saved, $890,000. We don't know if that's all in a 401k or IRA qualified accounts or if any of that's non-qualified, but I think it would be very important for you to start building up some of that, because we do know that if it's in an IRA, you can't access that prior to age 59 and a half without getting penalized 10%. The 401k, there's a little bit more flexibility there if he retires.
Yeah, if you retire after 55, most 401k plans will offer you the ability to leave that money in the account and pull that out as distributions, and you'll pay ordinary income taxes on it, but you won't get hit with that 10% penalty. So when we're working with clients that want to retire early at 55 or 58 or whatever that age may be, when we move the money out of that 401k to invest it in your bucket process and your bucket system, then we will leave behind inside that 401k enough money to get you through to 59 and a half based on the plan. So that is an opportunity. There are some other opportunities to get that money earlier, but most of them come with a little bit of a hitch, and so we don't like to pursue those. But if you're working until 55, you do have some options in your 401k.
We just did that with another client, in fact, that he retired at about 56 years old, and he just recently turned 59 and a half, and that 401k bucket, he told us, is going to zero. It's almost at zero. He's going to make it to July. So now we're switching from the 401k to his IRA for distributions.
Exactly. One of the other issues that we have, and even the client that we're talking about that wants to retire at 55 and maybe pushing it to 56 or 57, and a lot of us fall into that category, I'm 54, is we're kind of in that sandwich generation. We still have kids that are relying on us. They may be out of the house, maybe in college, but you're still trying to provide them some support. But on the other end of that, we have some aging parents that maybe didn't prepare as well as they needed to, and now we're having to help them. So we have some uncertainty on exactly how much it's going to cost us in retirement. We know what usually our household is, but we don't know what those other households that are relying on us from time to time and what support we might need to provide them, what that's going to do to our assets.
You know, and the other thing, too, we haven't brought up really in depth is the health insurance component to that. That is huge when it comes to retiring prior to age 65. We all know that's kind of the gold standard for people to retire at 65 because they can get Medicare. They enroll in the Medicare. So you're going to have a plan for health insurance. There are options out there, and they probably are not as frightening financially as maybe a lot of people think, but it is going to have to be part of your income. Those premiums are going to have to be paid, and that's going to have to be paid with the retirement income. So just some things to consider there for Marcus. And I would wrap it up, this question, by talking this in this general sense, Tim. It can be done. You have to build a plan to take a look at what it looks like. But I think ultimately what we find, even with our clients who do retire early, it's not often a full stop, that there is some other part-time work involved.
Exactly. They've got something, and I think there's some volunteer work that they would like to do, but there's always something that you're going to have to fill your gap and really have a purpose. And oftentimes that's a part-time job of something they really would like to do and have wanted to do. It's not going to pay near as much as what maybe their 40-hour-a-week job was before that, but it's going to be some type of income that's coming in that's going to provide some of that support so your assets can last much, much longer.
So we're going to name your question the question of the week, Marcus. We thank you for sending it in. We're going to send you a free Get Ready for the Future Show tumbler for being the question of the week. We just need you to email us to claim it. You can do that by emailing show@getreadyforthefuture.com. Our next question is from Reagan in Little Rock. I'm a firefighter. How much income should I plan for in addition to my pension and Social Security? Thanks for the question, Reagan. So we're glad you're asking this question because so often, and we work with some Little Rock firefighters, we worked with teachers, we worked with police officers. Back to that earlier question about people who retire early typically have a public funded pension that kicks in when they leave work at 55 years old because with firefighters and with teachers, they often have to only work 28 years and then they're available. They can walk away and get that monthly check, and they know that from day one. I would even say that most of the people we've worked with, they've got a pretty darn good. They've drawn a nice bead on all the particulars about their pension because they've been getting those updates on a regular basis. It's been a target of theirs, a goal of theirs. They know all about that pension, but I think so often, Tim, they're solely focused on that being the only source of their retirement income.
Yeah, and it is a good source of income. It definitely, and we've worked with a lot of firefighters, and the one thing with Little Rock firefighters, because you are in Little Rock, you're not paying into Social Security. So you are tied to the pension. And even though it is a good pension, there needs to be something more for a lot of you. And because you want more, you're used to having more. And so being able to save, and there is a deferred comp plan that you can save into as you're working as a Little Rock firefighter. And that is something that can be accessed earlier than age 59 and a half if you have that money in there. So to bridge that gap, you really don't have much of a gap unless you've also done some other part-time jobs. And there's a lot of you that do other types of work on your days off and have some actual income earnings that can pay towards Social Security. So you do have a little bit of a Social Security benefit, but it's usually a reduced benefit. It's not going to give you much, but a lot of you would need to be able to save into either some type of savings account, investment account, or into that deferred compensation plan to be able to have some additional funds to go along with your pension.
Yeah, and even if it is enough, I think I would challenge you, Reagan, to think about what is enough. Define enough. Your pension is coming to you monthly. This is the way I look at it. You're going to get a monthly check. You can't get advanced on that, right? You got to wait every first of the month, if that's when it comes, to get the next check to pay the bills. And it may be plenty to do that, to do everything you want to do. But what about the extras? And the extras may be the have-tos, or the extras may be the want-tos. What about replacing a vehicle? If you're making a monthly payment and your pension is taking care of that, maybe you can just make that trade and keep making that monthly payment. Maybe you can't, and maybe you're going to have to repair that vehicle occasionally. Maybe the roof gets damaged and you're going to have to incur a little bit of cost there that insurance doesn't cover. But what about the vacations and the other things that you want to do that are more of a lump sum payment rather than paying it out over time? Because one thing you don't want to do is to incur more debt when you get into retirement. Now, that pension's going to come with a cost of living adjustment, and that's great. So you're going to be able to at least make an impact on battling inflation. But it's the extras, I think, that you really want to have some savings therefore that you can take out, that really is a cushion between what you have monthly coming in and what you may want to pay in a more lump sum basis.
Exactly. And if you work 28 years, which is the standard, that's going to replace about 82% of your salary. So, I mean, your base salary, I guess now when you get your paycheck, you do have some deductions coming out that will bring that down. But you can kind of expect that pension, if you did work 28 years, to replace about 82% of your, I guess, your high five in years of salary as well. So you're getting a nice pension there. As Scott mentioned, you're going to get a cost of living adjustment. It's 3% every July 1st after you've been in the year. So there's some benefits there, but there's also, if you got started early in this and you wanted to work a few more years, you can work an additional, I believe it's 10 more years, and go into what they call the drop plan, which is continue to work, draw your salary, and then part of that pension is going to be put into really a retirement account for you, so that you can actually take and do something with that and maybe have that lump sum money to be able to purchase the car or do some different things that you really want to do that's on top of what your monthly goals are and what your monthly income is going to cover.
Yeah, I think that's a great option for firefighters, police officers, teachers have that. Here in Arkansas, they call it T-Drop. It allows you to really build up over a quick amount of time, honestly, because it's drawing interest. They're making a part of that pension payment into an interest-bearing account. It's usually a good interest rate, especially now.
Right now, yes.
And it can really add up. Now, the flip side of that, and we've had this discussion with our clients too who fall into these categories, is I don't want to work. I don't want to stay at that job. Well, you can create your own drop account, right? If you're willing to go find something else you want to do, and you walk away and you receive your pension payment, but you earn additional income by starting a new job, you could actually put that pension payment into your own investment account and grow it.
Yeah, my brother-in-law is actually doing that. He was a teacher in Missouri and administrator there, and he just turned 50 today, so happy birthday to Chris. But he's already retired, and he's drawing his pension, but he's also going back and he's working so he can get Missouri teachers don't pay into Social Security as opposed to what Arkansas teachers do. So he doesn't have a Social Security benefit that he would receive when he's 62 and qualify for Medicare and all that. So he's actually gone back to work a job that actually has Social Security. So he'll be able to get his 40 quarters and be able to have a Social Security benefit when it becomes time. But there are other options that he's able to do that. He's also able to save his income now while he also draws his pension. And so there's those opportunities as well. Again, if you work 28 years and you started at 20, you're relatively young, 48 to 55 years old normally in that retirement age range. And so you do have a number of years that you can do some things that maybe you really enjoy and kind of set your own terms, but have some income and build up some of those reserve accounts.
Yeah, let me just say to wrap this up, Reagan, we've worked with lots of firefighters, as we've said, police officers, teachers, federal employees. We've worked through those pension option selections too, the type of options you have there, how to receive your benefit as you walk up on retirement. Those are important too. So if Reagan or anybody else wants help creating that retirement income plan, building some additional retirement savings, I would encourage you to walk through the GenWealth Ready to Retire process. It is very easy to do. We'll walk through how much income you'll need to pay the bills in retirement, help you determine that, how much income you want depending on what retirement looks like. An income goal determines where your savings needs to end up at retirement. And you can walk through that process, the planning process. Get started by just either calling us toll-free at 866-653-PLAN. That's 866-653-7526. Or you can email us. Just send it to show@getreadyforthefuture.com, and we'll set up a first appointment that's complimentary. It's just a discussion about some of the things we talked about in answering your question today and determine if we're a good fit for you moving forward. If you have questions for this show, you can call or text them to us at 501-381-5228. You can leave a voicemail. We can play it on the air, or you can just send us a text and we'll write it up and put it on the screen. You can also send us an email, show@getreadyforthefuture.com. And that's where our final question came from. Email. Jim writes, I've got a 20-year-old daughter who I want to help teach about financial independence and investing. She obviously has a long way to go before retirement, but I know that's the ultimate goal for the investments she'll make. How do I help her determine how much to contribute now, what to invest in, and when to talk to a financial advisor? Jim, I got to say, thanks for thinking of your daughter in that way. And we have a lot of clients who do that because they know the mistakes they've made. They know everything that they did that they'd like their kids to avoid, right? The pitfalls, the mistakes. Get started early. We've shown you the graphics before on this show of how getting started early matters more than contributing longer at a later date in life. So this is a huge opportunity for your 20-year-old daughter. And I would say, first off, if she has earned income, open a Roth IRA today. We are huge fans of the Roth IRA. If you don't know how that works, you contribute with after-tax dollars, and the money is invested and grows tax-deferred, and you withdraw it tax-free in retirement. It also has some flexibilities that if you need to use the principal prior to retirement, there are some advantages there too, but it needs to be viewed as a retirement account, and you can really start to accumulate a lot of tax-free income, because that's where it's at too, right? When you think about retirement income, Tim, if you don't have to pay taxes on it, it goes a lot longer.
Yeah, and then if you've got 40, 45 years to stay invested and you're in good growth mutual funds, things like that, and give it that kind of time, that small amount that you contribute now will be big dollars later on. And in a Roth, I mean, you've got the taxes off of that. You've got it tax-free in retirement. So, I mean, it's a great place. I've taken care of this with my daughter, who is still a college student, makes some money during the summer, and so we haven't been able to contribute a lot to that, but we can actually contribute up to the amount that she's earned to a maximum each year that's set by the IRS, and I believe that's $7,000 this year. So that's going to adjust as you go. But if you can help your daughter out by getting her started with a Roth now, that would be the best way to go. Maybe there's some other things that she wants to save for, whether it's a vehicle, maybe a down payment on a house. Getting her started and maybe doing a match with what she saves just to get her incentivized to do that would be huge. If your kids are like mine, oftentimes they don't actually listen to you, but if someone else says the exact same thing, it actually catches. It's a good thing to maybe have them sit down with a financial advisor just to get an overview of some of the goals and some of the things that they can do and what some of that small investment now could look like 40, 45 years from now.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. When the question about when to talk to an advisor, my mind goes to this. I don't think you necessarily need an advisor to open an account. Choose some growth-oriented equity mutual funds at that age. But the value of going ahead and starting a relationship with a financial advisor, even at 20 years old, is just what Tim said. It's about avoiding pitfalls. It's about staying on track. It's about accountability. It's about help with other decisions outside of that so that you can reach your financial goals and retirement destinations. There's a huge advantage to that. And I would say also get her listening to Talking Sense. That's our other show. It's on the GenWealth Radio Hour. You can find it on podcast as well. But that's a little more geared. Teresa Arago is the host of that, and she brings in some of our other advisors as co-host and has special guests on that. And it's geared a little bit more towards the younger investor. And I think there's some great information out there for that as well, some guidance for clients who are getting started. But I think it's appropriate to think about starting a relationship with an advisor, even at an early age, and bring her in with you. Because here's the other issue, too. We talk about the generational part of this. We love it when our clients want to bring in their kids, because not only are they getting started on their own, but there's also going to be a transition here that takes place, because most of our clients they're not going to die penniless. They're going to have a substantial amount of wealth that's going to transfer to the next generation.
Yeah, and I think we all want to have kind of the hopes that our kids are going to be better off than we are. And in Arkansas, the thought with most of the people we work with, it's inheritance isn't a big deal to them as far as leaving a legacy. But as Scott mentioned, I mean, it is income for life, and we're always planning on having some type of balance that will be transferred to the next generation. And that next generation needs to know how to handle money, and avoiding the pitfalls that we've all made as younger folks, maybe cashing out of 401k when we changed jobs and things that really kind of took us a step back or two. Those are the types of things we need to make sure that next generation doesn't incur, because if we can make the right decisions, as Scott mentioned, opening an account, getting things going. One of the things my mom told me when I got my first job years ago was put 10% of my account or my paycheck into my retirement account. So I started that when I was 23 or so, and she told me, she goes, you won't miss it, and you learn to live on the rest. And that was one of the best pieces of advice financially that she's ever given me. So being able to do that for our kids and get them set up to be making those right decisions from the start, they will end up much, much better than we are ourselves.
And one final word on the type of investment, too. We talked about growth-oriented equity funds, or ETFs. We would still go towards the grouping of a fund. The fund versus an individual stock. I would tell you to ask your daughter to not listen to the internet. Don't be looking at stock picks and the hot tips right there, because those can flop, right? You want to be invested for the long term. Growth, yes. Equity, yes. But in a diversified fund or ETF wrapper. You heard the final bell there, so it's time for our final thoughts, and Tim, we'll start with you.
Well, Scott, you mentioned not always listening to headlines and everything else, and there's a lot of noise out there, and we need to cut through that noise and cut through that confusion. We are very educational based here, and if someone wants to come in and just have some questions on some of the basics, we've got people that can sit down with them and just get them going in the right direction. So getting educated and not trying to always do it yourself, because, I mean, the more you look, the more confused you'll probably get, because there are so many different opinions out there on the internet now. Even though I think it's a wonderful place to go, if you're not for sure exactly what you're looking for, you'll be more confused than anything else.
I'm going to go back to the questions prior to Jim's email about a younger investor and talk about our pre-retiree questions today about getting ready with, do I need an annuity, or do I need to save outside of the retirement plan that is offered through my employer through a pension, and I want to retire early. The answers to these questions lie in the GenWealth Ready to Retire process. It is a planning process that determines, are your assets that you are currently possessing and contributing to and growing going to be enough to provide you the monthly income you need and want at your selected retirement date? That's what you need to answer in all of these questions, and the GenWealth Ready to Retire process can do that. If you'd like to get started on that, call us toll-free at 866-653-PLAN. That's 866-653-7526, or just shout out with an email. Send it to show at getreadyforthefuture.com. We'd love to hear from you. And that's all the time we have on this week's Get Ready for the Future show, whether you're listening on podcast, on radio, or online. Thanks for doing that. And if you have a question, send it in, call or text it to us at 501-381-5228. We'll see you next week.
The GenWealth financial team is available to you 24/7 at info@getreadyforthefuture.com or call our offices at 866-653-PLAN. That's 866-653-7526. You should personally consult a financial advisor before making any investment, and no strategy can assure success. Securities offered through LPL Financial. Member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Independent Advisor Alliance. Independent Advisor Alliance and GenWealth Financial Advisors are separate entities from LPL Financial.